Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Kashif Khan, Vice President, Transaction Banking, Payments, Channels and Global Banking, Technology Service Management at Standard Chartered. We're also joined by Can Nhiep Pham, Chief Financial Officer at Home Credit Vietnam, and Canon Reja at Nam, Regional Director of Payments and Custom Operations at Zalora Group. Hi to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, well, we've got an awful lot to fit in over the next 45 minutes or so. So let's start where I guess everything begins and ends. That's with the customers, about how digital payments have transformed the way businesses and consumers transact in the modern era. How do we all feel digital payments have transformed things? And we'll start with you, Kashif.
Yeah, thank you very much. So digital payments have actually transformed how the business and consumers interact with the commercial world. And in fact, the supporting technologies were also evolved at the same time, which actually provide a very foundational fabric of digital payments proliferation. So we all use digital payments, in some form or shape. We all are the consumer of digital payments. Our customers are in hyper-connected world. All of us, right? The customer preference of interacting with the social and the commercial world around them is purely shaped by the use of technology. And specifically one piece of technology what I would like to refer here, consumers and customers are increasingly connected with their smartphone. So a smartphone is not just a device which you can actually make a call around that. It's actually connect you to it's become a gateway to the digital universe of the customer. And now the digital payments have introduced an unmatched level of convenience, speed, security, ease of doing business, and especially, the cost effectiveness in terms of doing a transaction cost. Now, since everything is being done digitally via a small device in our hand, mobile phone or our computing devices, surrounding ecosystem is also getting heavily digital, paperless, in terms of all the moving parts which support processing of a transaction or a payment, all is becoming a fully digital. Organizations are moving towards a digital transformation. In fact, the global payment messaging standard ISO 2022, which provides a common language of transaction. Doesn't matter wherever and whenever the transaction happen. These all are purely gearing up towards a digital transaction and a digital transaction-based economy. Other side of it, if you look at that with the introduction of the digital wallets, merchant side, for example, who could not acquire a transaction via normal traditional credit card terminal, now can acquire a transaction via mobile wallet. Unbanked and underbanked population in many regions who did not have an access to the basic financial services now become an inclusive part of the banked population, and now able to have an access to the basic banking services. So it has all these things. If you piece it together, it's actually have transformed not only the socioeconomic factors, but also the society in some form of shape, and business and consumer. But it goes back again to the basic fundamental that everything is driven based in a hyper-connected world. Your devices, transaction, processing, everything is connected in this particular space, and the gateway for these connections your mobile device have become a gateway to these connections. And this is how the simplicity and efficiency is transforming the businesses and consumer in both.
That's quite the hit list of transformations there, Kashif. Thank you. Kang, if we can come to you next from your perspective at Home Credit Vietnam, how do you feel it's transformed that relationship?
Well, I think it takes that relationship to the next level, right? In terms of hyper-connection, I do fully agree with Kashif that it changes the way you basically interact and you connect with the customers. It also kind of brings us more opportunities to financially include the customer into banking, right, and into financial lending. I must actually say that if you step back a bit, is just taking what we were doing offline to a next level online, with digital payment basically being one of the way to basically connect to the customers a little bit more seamlessly. I mean, I do relate to the fact that these services in terms of digital payment are faster, cheaper, safer, more transparent. But it also comes together with more education, right? So if you look back to how we were doing this service in Home Credit Vietnam, it's been a long journey, right? 16 years onboarding through financial lending, basically 23% of the Vietnamese adult population. And it's, for me, an additional step in this journey, that we bring it from offline to online, that actually digital becomes more and more prominent, but it also comes with responsibilities. The way we look at this in terms of inclusion is that you include digitally, but you also need to keep including financially all those population into this landscape of both digital payment and eventually to digital lending. And I would say what is key is indeed the customer relationship and how you basically show up and capitalize on this customer relationship. Especially when I relate to Vietnam, I would say this journey is a bit more on the making than actually as mature maybe as in other countries. So I mean, we are still getting on the way of hyperconnection. The question is, how is this hyperconnection going to be received by Vietnamese population, especially in remote areas like rural areas where they basically get access to services, but they're still a little bit risk adverse to leaving their data on their phone or their information on their phone, right? And that's why we are there to help them to basically make digital transaction not only easier, but also make them feel that it's safer. So a revolution, but it's an evolution of basically a journey that has started way before, that needs to basically come to fruition into a more hyper-connected world environment. And I would say logical journey, but also most probably more transformative.
And I think that's an absolutely outstanding point there about recognising the maturity of the digital journey that customers are going through in different areas there. I think that's absolutely crucial and something we mustn't forget. Canon, if we can come to you next from Zalora Group. Obviously, you're coming to this from the online retail perspective. You speak a lot on customer experience. You said you are a customer experience professional by choice, which I think is a fantastic expression. For you, is the customer experience the critical part of the change of relationship here?
Yeah, thank you. So just taking a step back and looking into the mass market perspective, when we first launched in this market, we were operational in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. So if you compare, comparatively, these countries are worlds apart when it comes to digital adoption and also digital penetration. So in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, in 2012, when we first launched in the market, we had such a hard time to introduce cash on delivery as a mainstream payment channel, right? So we had to convince all the third-party logistics partners to say that this is feasible and this is exactly how we should do it. And I believe together with another e-commerce player at that point of time, we were the first to actually introduce cash on delivery in a mass market way in the market. And probably back then we had about 4 digital payments. The more general ones would be PayPal, bank transfer, and credit cards, right? And if you go out at that point of time and look into the retailers in general, digital acceptance is something that is very rare. And if you are able to operate, that becomes a very unique proposition. But fast forward in 2024, and if you go to some street vendors in Indonesia, and comparatively in India as well, some of them would not want to accept cash anymore. So the digital acceptance has grown tremendously over the period of like a decade plus. And I think along with this, there's drivers of digitalization. One is convenience, and the other one would be cost. Cost for the merchants have been. The central bank has been the biggest proponent of driving the cost down and also driving innovation to some extent. So we have seen efforts across multiple central banks or central monetary authorities across Southeast Asia, consistently engaging the relevant stakeholders in the ecosystem to drive the cost down and to enable it to be accepted widely across different segments of merchants. And it drives innovation. So today you can see there's QRIS in Indonesia, there's Pay Now in Singapore, there's Do It Now in Malaysia, and like multiple bank transfer acceptance, cross-border QR payment acceptance. And it comes at a very cheap cost to merchants. And to some extent, it's free in some of those markets. Beyond that, I guess, working together in the digital space, the ecosystem players have now unlocked a new collaborative opportunity. So together now what we can actually do, like the likes of the wallets and the likes of merchant like us, now we can actually collaborate together to cross-sell, to provide peer-to-peer access, and this open up a wide new opportunity, right, with regards to marketing and growing the business further. So I think the digital transformation is quite an interesting one in Southeast Asia, and it has actually delivered some level of fruition, and I think it's going to elevate further as we go along.
Okay, well, we've covered off a whole range of changes about how the experience is changing for customers, but let's look at some of the advantages when it comes purely from the business and the financial point of view. What are the primary benefits and what are the emerging primary benefits from it? Kang, if we can come to you first on that one, from your perspective, what are the primary benefits you see coming through and what are the benefits for the future you're expecting to see?
So, sorry, was it for me or was it for...
That's for Kang Nyok Pham, please.
Okay, sorry. So in terms of benefits, right? So short-term and future benefits. I mean, I can relate to cost and convenience. Obviously, I mean, I think that's really important that when you basically kind of go digital, you kind of show up on cost and convenience. It's also about basically ecosystems, right? The immediate benefit of basically getting to digital transformation in digital landscape is about the connection and the power of the connection to payment gateways, e-commerce platforms, and obviously e-wallets. It helps basically getting more and more use case available to our customers, and by basically growing number of use case to our customers, we're able to basically get to know them better. And in the business of digital lending, it helps us considerably into understanding the behavior of this customer, right? Over the long term, I would say, as you develop that relationship and you get more knowledge about what they pay and transact, you can be more personalized in terms of communication. You can bring more of your product in relation with their needs, and you can eventually monetize whatever is your traffic and the stickiness of your customer towards other partners of the ecosystem. I would say that's really, in a nutshell, how I look to short-term and long-term benefits. We've basically two very strong pillars: customer experience and how you make it fast, convenient, and basically seamless. And in the case of Home Credit Vietnam and in Vietnam, you need to make it seamless both from offline perspective but also from online perspective, because it's actually not necessarily that seamless at this moment. And then the other part I would actually underline is the strength of the partnership and the ecosystem that allows you to be basically monetizing all of these benefits because it's simpler, faster, more convenient, available anytime, anywhere to your customers. They would tend to use it more and more and over, right? So this cost and this convenience are actually really kind of self-feeding each other to basically create more sustainable profit over time as you basically cross-sell and upsell most of your data and most of your traffic to your partners in the ecosystem.
Canon Rajanathnam, if we come to you next on that, please.
Sure. Let's take a step back to rather establish a reflection point on how this could be an operational challenge for a merchant like us. So typically, if you look at the segmented behavior of the customer, a cash and delivery customer for the matter, would have less commitment on accepting a package and making payment for it, as opposed to someone who has paid through the digital channels. Given the fact that because digital channels are normally prepaid, that means you have paid for the order before it arrives at your doorstep, whereby for cash on delivery is mostly postpaid. So the level of commitment differs in this segment of customers. Hence, we typically incur a higher cancellation or rejections for cash on delivery as opposed to digital payment. And also for cash on delivery, the average transaction values are much smaller, given the fact that you are dealing with cash, you cannot place orders for thousands of dollars. So normally your basket sizes of transactions, every transaction value are smaller. And I think beyond that, what we have also noticed that the seamlessness and the convenience we offer actually stimulates higher frequency of purchases. So if it's not the case of Zalora where we are the merchants, I would like to relate to another point whereby today, if you look at your phone as an example, right, there are a lot of games that offers multiple credit purchases if you get addicted to it. And before you know it, I mean, if you are addicted or, you got into this entire web of like playing with certain games and you really got addicted to it, you would then try to load up your credits just to, kind of innovate in the entire gamification process. And before you know it, you could have incurred at least $50 to $80 US dollars worth of transactions in those games, in casing for the leveling up. So I think seamlessness actually helps to stimulate purchases. The convenience also helps customers to make purchases seamlessly, because experience is not just about the product, it's not just about browsing through the site or the technology platforms, but also beyond that, how fast or how easy do you make payments, right? And when you have all these convenient levers in place, then it gets to a point that the frequency of purchase is better, the cancellation is smaller, the average transaction value is higher, and beyond that, for Zalora as a unique selling proposition, we also offer customers free returns, and we notice that through this methodology or through digitalization, the returns have also reduced, because now I get much more informed ability to make a purchase, of course with true product information and whatnot. Also, at some point, it comes to a behavioral point whereby my payment amount is much smaller and it's digitalized, and I think it takes too much effort for me to return or whatnot, and I will just probably keep the item, right, and probably resell it to someone else or give it as a gift. So we have to some extent noticed some of this behavior in our platform, and I think it's evolving further as we speak.
Absolutely. And Kashif Khan at Standard Chartered, we can come to you next on the advantages and the advantages of the future we're expecting to come online. Kashif, can you still hear me?
One of the key aspects, what in the digital payments, the client expect in terms of digital client experience is hyper-personalization. So the hyper-personalization, in terms of the personalization, doesn't really have to be built in the pre-programmed. It has to be suggested by the different data point and data set and algorithm, and as well as at every point of the customer journey, the features in electronic banking, the features in any service which you are using, in terms of either it's a web-based banking, or it's a mobile application, or it's a wallet. The hyper-personalization is what the feature is expected in terms of the client centricity. Another thing is that client and our customers and consumers in any financial industry, or even a normal consumer of any service, started to expect right now that they should not be overloaded, for example, in a complex process of submitting multiple items on the screen and field, populating different areas of the transaction details. So it's the entire journey. The expectation is around the entire journey of initiating, settling the transaction has become seamless. The transaction has to be seamless with very less manual interventions, pre-populated features, okay, and the customer and the journey itself have to be very have to be personalized and hyper-personalized for the specific need and the specific customer. So this is one of the features in terms of digital payments that are expected. The other expectations, okay, from the customers around is, okay, reduced transaction costs. It's given being a digital platform, security, secure transaction processing, complete visibility of the transaction journey. For example, if a customer is sending, let's say, a cross-border payment, a complete visibility around the payment processing, where is the process, where is my payment right now, when is it going to get settled, and the efficiency. Corporates, back-end integrations, okay, of banking systems, all these are now become a norm expectations. So probably 20 years ago, these were, what we call it a differentiation, but now it has become a very norm. Every customer and every consumer of the banking service expect these features, whether it's a retail side, whether it's a corporate side, it's being expected. Fortunately, the advancement in technology actually also have impacted the form factor of the payments. You are not only required to pay by touching your plastic card to a machine. Now, you can pay via mobile phones. You have an NFC-enabled payment, which actually, by the way, revolutionizing the retail experience. NFC-enabled payments, where you can just wave your phone and you can make a payment to any NFC-enabled terminals. Smartwatches, internet-connected devices, even now, the form factor have reduced to a payment-enabled ring. Your ring can make a payment. So all these technological advancement plus customer centricity based on the customer experience is basically generating and escalating the customer expectations around how hyper-personalized services they should receive from their payment service providers.
Well, one thing you touched on there, Kashif, is about the expectations and the demands of customers. They are very, very discerning now. That's one particular set of challenges. Let's move on to other wider challenges about the difficulties and challenges businesses face when adopting digital payment solutions. And more importantly, how can we go about overcoming those? Kannan Rajaratnam, we'll start with you. How do you feel those challenges manifest themselves and how can they be overcome?
Okay, so we probably do about 400 to 450 million worth of revenue in this part of the region. Even at our scale, at times when, I think back in 2017 or 2018, the central monetary authorities across Southeast Asia issued at least 20, ranging from 20 to 30 digital wallet licenses across each and every market that we operate. And it became an impossible task to actually integrate all of them. And also from a business liability point of view, it's not making sense to actually offer 30 digital wallets on our platform. So we had to be selective. So we deployed multiple criteria to evaluate and to understand which are on the path of emerging. I mean, the wallets are on the path of being an emerging winner, or already a clear winner in those markets. I think that was a challenge because when we want to prioritize, it requires quite a substantial amount of tech resources to be deployed. And then beyond that, I think it's a stronger need for us to establish a back-end process where reconciliation or revenue recognition is concerned. And for us operationally, uniquely, we also need to understand how we then process refunds on these channels. And I think for merchants with a smaller scale than us, that would impose a bigger challenge. Then you need to have this ability to prioritize and also the right technical resources to deploy it. However, lately, I think when this challenge has been also converted or rather transformed into an opportunity by some of the payment aggregators where they offer a single point integration and then you get access to all this wide variety of payment channels. I think those are quite beneficial to the small and medium businesses. And eventually, I think it also leaves the business to just establish more of like a revenue recognition process or rather a reconciliation process for that matter. And I think that's the only challenge that is available for some of the businesses. And also fast forward today, you can actually see a lot of QR acceptance are much easier to deploy. All you need is just a QR code, which you can actually get from the banks. And the settlement process has also has also evolved since a decade ago. So those back in the days, you probably get your settlement payment in 2 weeks' time or a week's time. And today you get in real time and in some of the more mature payment channels or more of like a traditional payment channels like credit cards, you can even get it within like 2 days or same day settlement if it's possible. So I think it has really transformed. The challenges may no longer be challenges, but I think the data points and also the resources and the skills to maintain a digital platform has to be built within an organization or within a small business. And with that, they can actually go on further to explore multiple ability or to offer a wide variety of digital payments.
Absolutely. Kashif Khan, if we can come to you next at Standard Chartered, the challenges of implementation and how can they be overcome?
Okay, so as the digital payments are basically right on the fabric of digital infrastructure. So in several so there are geographies, there are markets, okay, which are where the digital communication and overall infrastructure is very good, and it becomes an enabler, and proliferation of digital payments is comparatively easier there. But there are geographies around where the digital infrastructure plus the basic telecommunication infrastructure and as well as different other kind of adoption barriers are present. Now, in these kind of scenarios where the very own fabric where the digital payments runs is lacking in terms of infrastructure, the adoption barriers definitely become much visible. But it is still, again, goes back to the different technologies. So for example, if you do not have a digital banking in terms of internet banking, okay, you explore for example for the consumer SMS banking or telco banking service provider, which has been in some markets in Africa is there. Now, I will specifically talk about not the infrastructure barriers, okay, which required an infrastructure to build for a seamless digital payments ecosystem, but specifically where the infrastructure is available for a digital payments and a good infrastructure, and still there are adoption challenges. It's because of the fragmented experience. Digital payment services needs to be designed with keeping customer in mind. It's every single thing, process, services, product, whatever we are designing for the digital payment, the customer is the nucleus of every single decision you take for a product or services or even a process or even the procedural level. So the customer become a nucleus of every single thing. But when the experience is very fragmented, and for example, I would like to give an example. For example, if you are initiating a payment and at certain point of the payment, there is you receive an error message on your mobile phone, please call the bank. That's fragmented experience. You should be able to complete a transaction, within the ecosystem, within an application without going through much trouble. So customer simplify every interaction touch point in the customer journey, reduce the customer effort to interact with the customer journey. That's how you solve that fragmented experience problem.
Thank you, Kashif. And we come to you last on this, Kang Nyok Pham. If your thoughts on the challenges and how you overcome them.
Well, in terms of challenges, I would say, and I'm just referring to Vietnam experience, right? I mean, you were referring about fragmented experience. I think Vietnam is even more fragmented. I mean, there is indeed some digital landscape going up, right? But it's actually moving and accelerating, but it's actually still a small fraction of the market. So the first challenge is to get basically digital payment ramping up out of a number of sets of standards which are very different from one another, right? So you have to navigate basically in these circumstances through the right choice of technology or the right choice of the partner to facilitate digital payment adoption. So you're even running behind compared to what Kashif and Kanan was sharing because we're not yet to the fast forward environment that we basically are speaking about. So the first barrier, I would say, and the first challenge is about education, right? It's about how you make basically all those customers with their smartphone more adopting and more adopters of digital payment solution. And it comes with financial inclusion, it comes in terms of how you would educate them. And by Canon a little bit earlier, which is about start small, do small value purchases thanks to easy to use product, and basically develop the adoption from there. So this journey is kind of a long one if you want to basically kind of get to really leverage a mature infrastructure. I mean, as you go and build along, the infrastructure needs also to tag along and to be basically present for you to be able to develop this customer-centric experience. So I was relating a little bit earlier about partnership and ecosystem. In this matter, the challenges of choosing the right partner and basically developing the right use case for your digital payment infrastructure are pretty critical, because the way you are actually able to onboard is really by progressively building the habit, starting small, getting this service available anytime, anywhere, every place you want, getting this layer of basically connection through ecosystem be as reliable and as mature as possible, and then you can use the technology. Technology is already available. The point is actually, it's not yet to the point where you can connect every time and every place to the relevant use case you want. So in the end, basically, this journey is really dependent on the assessment you do of the digital payment landscape to a certain extent. The transformation journey needs to come with the right and the proper time, and you need to be very patient when you're implementing new products to actually kind of leverage the habit and also leverage the change of the customer behavior little by little. I think it's about being sustainable, at the same time being inclusive, and addressing basically customer population all across the range. So banking population, more digital savvy, don't have any issue with digital transaction, but the ones which are more remote are the ones who are more adverse to it, and they are the ones that actually you want to capture because the potential for growth is much higher. So that's how I would term basically the different challenges that we would like to overcome and how we would overcome them in Vietnam.
Thank you, Kang. Well, you've led us on very nicely to my final question of this session as we were talking about the journey. So let's look to the future. What I want to look at next is the emerging technologies that have the potential to further revolutionise the digital payment space. So we are nearly up to time, so if you could keep your answers to around a minute, I'd be very, very grateful. So Kashif, if we could start with you. The emerging technologies that have the further potential to revolutionise the digital payment space, where do you see those?
So I will just name three technologies what I believe will significantly they have already transformed the face of digital payments, but they will continue to make an impact in next couple of years. And that is number one, cloud, number two, API, and number three, AI. So cloud, I will just give a short brief that why I think cloud Cloud is very important because it provides you the scalability and elasticity to expedite deployments. Any solution traditionally which you need to think and build the physical infrastructure in your, let's say, for example, data center, which take months, okay? Now you can actually deploy in a matter of a day and to a certain extent in an hour. So on-demand scalability, on-demand elasticity, you can accelerate your client experience, your customer experience strategy by deploying the solution. So the cloud is one of the very key element which is making an impact on the digital payment services development and as well as the adoption. The second is on the APIs. So APIs are the programming interface which fintechs use basically to connect to the bank and get the banking service. So your wallets, a lot of your wallets, B2C wallets and digital wallets, basically they connect to the banking backends, which are not exposed to the application, and you will be able to do a normal banking transaction with them. So APIs are giving a birth to open banking, open API banking, and even banking as a service. So the digital wallets you are seeing is a very good example of the usage of APIs. A small fintech company, okay, take those APIs and develop the fantastic solution on an existing banking partner with a modern interface running on your modern phone. So that's API is continuously changing the way the banking and especially the wallet space is running. Now the third one is AI. Okay, tremendous potential. Context-aware chatbots in banking are already using AI. AI helps you to develop the models for a hyper-personalization on every single transaction. Machine learning, technology operations, all are getting towards a direction right now, okay, where the use of AI in many business cases, the AI, fraud detection, real-time decision, predictive analysis. If you come to the operation side of an organization, self-healing technologies, software repairing itself, AI-based ops where you do not need much human interactions or much human intervention to fix things if something is broke down, and different kind of intelligent automation. So these three technologies will continue to have a significant impact on development of a payment landscape.
Kashif, thank you. That's 3 key bullet points. So you fitted a tremendous amount into just a couple of minutes there. Canon at Zalora Group, if we can come to you next, and if you could keep your answer to around a minute, I'd be very grateful. The emerging technologies that have got the potential to revolutionise things further.
All right. So I'd like to relate to a point that technology that already have emerged, but I guess propelling the innovation further is the QR-based cross-border payment methods. So we have seen significant number of MOUs between the countries and central monetary authorities being inked and also enabling such payment methods taking shape in the last 18 months or so. And I believe propelling this further, we often understated the potential the tourist arrival has for merchants, especially when it's smaller merchants. And with this ability to transact cross-border seamlessly would stimulate much higher transactional value. And I think in the last 2 weeks or so, we have seen multiple examples coming from Alipay, with BigPay's MOUs and multiple enablement to allow customers or user base of Alipay in general to transact in other markets. And I think this is just a beginning. It's about to transform the world into a more seamless cash flow or transactional base.
Absolutely. And Kang Niop Pham, if we can come to you last from Home Credit Vietnam. Your thoughts on that? Look to the future. What are going to be the things that revolutionise things going forward in digital payments?
Well, I mean, I think more adoption of standards, right? Of more global standards would considerably help, because actually I think one of the things is the interconnectiveness of all the different ecosystem are actually one thing that the future could help us bring across, right? That the solution that we use somewhere could be seamlessly used somewhere else, right? That you could use it anywhere and anytime. So all of these APIs, cloud technology, I really see them as important and critical in how we expand. I also kind of look to QR payment and acceptance, and QR as also one other way the digital payment system would be basically contributing to this digital transformation. It's really important that actually you relate all of these technologies also to the customers, right? Because the customers are changing. I mean, Gen Z customers are actually kind of much more digital savvy in the way they use the tools. I mean, they come much more natural across it. They want basically solutions that are cross-border and basically leveraging like as many touch points as possible. I mean, they really look for this hyper-personalized communication. So the next barrier is actually from our current customer base standpoint, how we address the next generation. And the next generation is much more demanding in terms of technology and seamlessness, instantaneousness to a certain extent of the experience, as much as basically instant education. Because I think it's what is important there is this instant education is something that needs to be built in any customer journey and experience we're building at this moment, because it's not so obvious when you do contactless that you know what it means in terms of responsibility for you as a customer. So how you basically blend all of this into one thing so that the customer thinks he has a responsibility also in doing this properly is as much important as how seamless it is for him to basically use and leverage the technology that will be available for him in the future.
Of course. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today. I feel we could have carried on talking all afternoon, but we've covered a great deal about customers, the advantages, the challenges, and a look to the future as well. Thank you all so much for joining us here at Fintech Live Singapore. You've all been very generous with your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Bye.